Hello everybody, welcome to the first meeting of the Naming Committee of Entity 51. We're meeting this evening to get the process started on what we're going to do. So we're calling the meeting to order at 6:04. I want to begin with acknowledgement of treaty land. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Wolastoq Way land. The lands of the Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Wolastoq, along which live the Wolastoq the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. And just like the record to show that everybody's in attendance except for Rob Wilson. He unfortunately is out of province and not able to attend. I have an agenda in front of the group. I just ask that someone move that we accept it as presented, and then someone can second it. I know it's a little bit formal, but this is a high-profile committee. Shelley will move it, and John will second it. All those who agree with the agenda, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Great, thank you. So we're just going to begin with just a bit of a review of what you got yourself into, okay? And I'm sorry it's too late to back out now. Okay. So here's the agenda, what we're going to go through. And what we're doing now is just reviewing the naming committee. The council has to make a decision on May 9th because the way the process works, and I'm going to defer to the deputy mayor if I make a mistake, is that council approves it, then we have to send it to Fredericton, and I believe it's the Ministry of Justice drafts the regulations, along with potentially 78 other communities that are also potentially changing their name. If we remain Bay-Westfield, then our job is done May 9th. So that's why May 9th is the deadline. Justice drafts the regulations, and then it has to go before a cabinet. I think the lieutenant governor has to see it towards the end, and then it's proclaimed on July 1st. Is that right? Close enough?
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. All right. So that's why May 9th is the deadline. So time is of the essence on this. Okay. And then the Transition Advisory Committee, you're unanimous. We need to look at another name, was the consensus. Okay? So here's the timeline. This past Monday, Council and the LSD representatives, Shelley Totten and Louis Bijot, nominated the five of you to the committee. Next week, we want to launch the contest. And then we're going to be collecting all the submissions. I think the contest ends March 28th. March 28th, right? And then we're going to collate them, and Brock will go through a little bit. You'll be able to have this at some point. We'll be posting it online to entity51.ca, okay? And then it'll be your delicate task to agree what are the 3 to 5 final names. And let's remember that one name is already slotted in, and that's of Bay-Westfield. So it'll be 2 to 4 names that you actually get to choose. Okay? And so that has to be done because starting, I think April 11th is a Monday, people get to vote. Okay? And then people have until April 25th to register their vote. And then you get to meet to look at the results, verify the results, and then come to council a week later, May 2nd, led by the chair. And I expect everybody to be in attendance. Here's the name that we recommend that the community use. And it could be Bay-Westfield or it could be something. I was disappointingly told that Johnstown is not an option. And that's because it's a personal name. Yeah, and then the following week, because we have a bit of a thing here, first heard, then deferred, council will vote on May 9th. And then the next day, administration will submit it to the province. if you have any questions, just feel free to, raise your hand and ask, okay? And likewise to Louis and Shelley and the deputy mayor and the mayor. If I said something wrong about the advisory meeting, just say, oh, it wasn't quite like that. Okay. Sorry, Louis.
How are the votes counted? Who's gonna do that?
So Brock will get into that a little bit.
Okay.
But in short form, we're going to be doing everything on internet. People will be able to come in, but they'll be using an iPad. And then that form will direct everything to an Excel sheet. So we're only going to be able to, we won't have to have a pizza party where we're here Saturday counting ballots. It'll be done electronically, okay, Lou?
Okay.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Or are you disappointed in the pizza?
No,
Okay.
I just didn't know where it was gonna happen.
Okay, your first job is selecting a chair tonight, and we'll get to that. You're going to oversee the process. Is the process fair? Is everything being considered? Are we following the proper rules? Some of which you're going to determine. You ensure that the name is selected based on merits, and that it's not really a popularity contest, even though that will be part of the contest. When Brock does get to the form, people have to verify that they actually live within here. Because believe it or not, we have people from outside the town, like Chris Pamses, want to be on the naming committee. So yeah, this is a pretty popular group here. You're going to develop criteria, and we're going to run through that this evening. Select names that are presented for the public voting. Recommend the winning name, and then your job is done once council's done their vote. So May 9th is your last day with this. So best thing with this committee, you know when it ends. Okay? Now we're going to do an election of the chair. We're just going to do by a show of hands. What's the responsibilities of the chair? The chair is going to run the meeting. The chair is going to speak for the committee to the public and press. And we've already received requests from the media to speak with people from the committee. We've asked them to wait until tomorrow when the chair could speak to any questions that they may have. And then the expectation of the chair is that they may be asked to attend other meetings or even do public engagement education purposes. So say River Valley Middle School. They want to learn about the names. Maybe they want to have their own internal competition about what name it should be. Well, it would be the obligation of the chair the chair can only be one of the 5 people from the public. So Erica, Rob, Terry, and John are the only eligible people to be the chair, not the LSD representatives or the councillors. If there's a school visit required, is it Global TV that's asked for the interview? Global TV, it'll be the chair speaking. Okay, and the chair reflects the whole committee, not personal opinions. Any questions about the role of the chair? No? So what we just asked, if you think that someone ought to be the chair, I encourage you to speak up and nominate someone. Or, if there's a lull if you think that you want to be chair, stick up your hand. Okay. I know it's awkward, silent, you have to make decisions right up front.
Wanna make it John?
Okay. Carrie suggests John as well?
I think John started this, maybe he should take it over.
Yeah, that's 3.
It's more responsibility.
Rob, what are your thoughts?
I would concur with that.
I'll turn it over to the LSC and the councillors.
Yes, I would support John as chair.
Louis, you're the only one?
Doing one what?
I haven't heard.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sorry, okay, I'm just making sure you heard, that's
I
all.
saw his presentation. I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but I saw the presentation.
I read it in the paper, I read about it in the paper, so I figured,
Great, so John Taylor, do you accept the?
I accept, yeah.
Great. So John, we're going to turn the meeting over to you in short order. And then the deputy mayor will move to your position. Please bring your name tag up.
Or where am I moving there now?
I'm gonna move.
Oh, geez, okay.
Your next job is to, hopefully thank everybody and then call me back up so that I can do the rest of the presentation.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Oh, you forgot your name tag.
Oh, wait.
Sorry, I forgot my name. It's probably the John part.
Single choice.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for the opportunity. I'm quite happy to do it, and I'm excited to see what we can accomplish. John, if you'd like to continue.
Great, okay. So the next part of the agenda is just talking about toponymy, and really all that is about our guidelines to place names. That's basically what we're talking about. So when I went to the New Brunswick government website under Heritage, they have a group that does toponymy. And they had a link to the federal government site on place names. So what you see here is not created by me. This comes from the federal government, and it was a link from the government of New Brunswick that took me here, okay? So I'm not an expert in toponymy, but in the near future, we will have somebody from the Heritage Department who does work in toponymy who will meet with us. And I don't know if that'll be in person or virtual. I assume their participation may be virtual. And but we might have the technology where you're not a council, but you may be able to meet virtually. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, okay? So I don't have a date for when the province will be presenting. I just don't have that today, okay? So basically, the first part, names created by legislation are accepted. That's fairly broad. Bay-Westfield is perfectly acceptable. Narapis, about a third of our fire department comes from Britton and Campbell Road. One of our guys there, his address is Narapis, so that's an example of something that's accepted. Priority is given to names well established in local use. So, Ketapek has been mentioned, Grand Bay, Westfield, Annette, Sagwa, all those things are strong local use here. So those are names that could be considered. Names used by postal transportation major utilities. Typically they've been using the ones that we're familiar with. I'm not familiar with something that may be quite dated and you haven't really heard of, but still being used. Is there a geographic feature or feature about the town? We live on the side of a small mountain. Do we want to call ourselves side mountain or something like that? Personal names are not accepted. So my son was hoping for Austin, New Brunswick. Doesn't work. Okay. Is there a preferred source of new names? Names of pioneers, explorers, those types of things, names from indigenous languages. Before Christmas, I did consult with some indigenous leaders for a name, and their suggested name is, if I butcher it, please accept my apology, is Kechi-Quizbem, which means Grand Bay, and the elders thought that name captured the whole area that goes basically from Woodman's Point down to south of Grand Bay, and it means Grand Lake, sorry, not Grand Bay. So Kechi-Quizbem means Grand Lake. That's how they refer to this area. Euphonious, great name, just means pleasing to the ear. John mentioned that the other night during his presentation. And again, if you have any questions, stick up your hand. John?
I did have one just about personal names, because, I'm not sure what the exceptional circumstances are, but Lingley is a postal name, but it's actually named after the Lingley family. So is that exceptional enough? It's going to be used.
So I think we go a little bit later here. There's 14 criteria altogether. Historical names are accepted.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? Because there's, is it Hope Farm in Westfield?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, Mount Hope. That would be acceptable as well. Historical names, explorers, something like that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? And again, if you ask the question, I would encourage you to remember to ask it to the experts when they come.
Yes.
Okay? And usually in a single language form in the Roman alphabet. So right now we have decorative road signs with the traditional way of spelling Wolastoq as an example in Narrabus. We cannot use that spelling for that name here. Okay. The spelling and accenting of names follow the rules of the language in which they're written. So if we adopt a French name that has an accent, that's fine. But if we want to have an English name and we want to be cute and put an emphasis on the end with an accent, that's not acceptable. Okay? And then they're just saying names of service facilities, like the post office, that should conform with the official name of the community. And so that'll be something that the province will look after. And while I'm thinking of this, Brock is working on answer the frequently asked questions about what's the process for the name change. I think I spoke to it a little bit Monday night. I can reiterate it here again tonight. The Department or Ministry of Environment and Local Government is working with Service New Brunswick and will be working with the federal government to ensure that potentially all 79 names are reflected accurately. And then it comes to us with our bills, our bank account, our subscriptions to fill in the change address form. So the expense is really the time in filling out the form. Driver's license, Medicare, that's all done through the Ministry of Environment and Local Government, through Service New Brunswick. And then whenever yours is up for renewal, what I understand is likely when you'll have the new name on there. Okay. Duplication of names should be avoided if confusion may result. I'm new to the area. I understand there's a Grand Lake nearby. It's not far. So we really shouldn't be choosing Grand Lake. Okay? Is there a generic name term? And that's really it. So, do we call ourselves Mountainville or whatever the case may be? We could, if we wanted, be Upper St. John. And then, of course, Lower St. John is below us, right? That's, if we want to have a bit of pride in our name, that we're better than St. John or something. And then, of course, the adoption of a name of a minor feature. I don't know if many, marshes, we have marshes here, would be a feature of the area. How would that look here? But I think that also addresses another issue. Brock will be posting this online, so if you want to go to the original source, you just have to click on the link at the bottom of the slide. Okay. Then, New Brunswick has the most native names in the Maritimes. So that's good. And we also have a link in another slide that you can go to, and it talks about, Edmundston is named, it used to have a different name. It became Edmundston in the late 19th century because the gentleman, Lieutenant Governor, I don't remember what his title was.
Can't recall.
Anyways, Mr. Edmund, at the end of the day, he was honored with the town to be named after him because he's the one who brought in the first elected government, local elected government in Canada. If I may have that wrong, but anyways, he was mainly responsible for that. Okay, so, and then when and then to just talk about, usually when it's English, we remember people. If we use indigenous names, usually it's something that describes a geographic feature. So that's about it for me. And this one let's see if this launches correctly. There we go. There you can look at Bathurst. Edmundston is here somewhere as well. Okay, Fredericton, and where they are. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so all this will be there available for you. I'm not an expert in toponymy, but one of the expectations tonight is that we should be adopting some of these things. So I would encourage John I'll go back to our presentation, and that there should be a general consensus. I can't see my cursor. Yeah. There we go. Let's go back here. And I think we should have some general consensus about the names to get us started, and then we can firm things up when the province speaks to us.
Okay.
So if you don't mind just leading us through the points, or I can assist you if you want, of what's required. But we really should be adopting these points to guide us so that, you know, people know that we're not going to accept Johnsville or Johnstown. You know, Redneck Canyon may be inappropriate, as an example. So we should be adopting some of these and saying that, you know, we're going to follow the typical guidelines that are presented by experts.
Okay, I mean, that seems reasonable enough. So I just ask if somebody has a motion to accept and somebody seconds, or?
Well, ask for someone to just move it, that we talked about it, someone seconds it, and then we talked about it after it's been moved and seconded.
I think it's a good idea to be educated in how the process works. And this is quite enlightening. When I first came, or was selected, I was wondering how it was going to work. And this gives us broad guidelines to work within, and I kind of agree with it.
Okay.
All right.
So you're saying we should sort of disperse this to people to make sure other people are actually reading it and they can see what we're working with, rather than just sort of trusting?
Yes. We have to have a starting point. I would assume
Yeah.
we should have a starting point somewhere. And to educate everybody would be the first step in the process, I think.
We're gonna get questions, people are
Yes.
gonna get us a demo.
Why are we doing this and how come and what for?
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe there was, I'm not sure if it was circulated in what we were sent when we were initially agreed to, or if it was circulated more widely, but I think there were 5 criteria. I don't remember exactly what they were: appropriateness,
Yeah.
historic, like, I think this is probably a bit more fleshed out, and
Yeah,
I think this
those-
would be a better idea.
Yeah, that was the first report I prepared for council. And it just kind of was a general capture of these 14 points.
Yeah.
But these are the specifics, and we really should respect this. This is the accepted procedure across Canada.
We can't go wrong with that.
No, we can get confused, but we can't go wrong.
Anything from this side of the table?
I think it's good for people to know, because we don't want people to put their votes in or suggest names that are obviously not gonna be chosen, so that's kind of it. You don't wanna waste your selection, or you don't want a school to come up with a name and send it in as their winning one that wouldn't have a chance, so.
Yeah.
That's it.
Who picks that it's not gonna, it's gonna be offensive or?
That's you.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's, the town picks the name, but I believe this committee picks kind of the short list to go out to the town. So the town isn't choosing between 57 different names.
Entity 51, not the town.
Pardon me, sir?
It's entity 51
It's
selects the name.
So entity 51 chooses between, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's good.
I think we should adopt these guidelines and proceed with.
Alright. Is that a motion?
I said yes.
Second?
I'll second it.
Hang on. Who seconded it? Eric?
Eric.
Okay, just a second. Can you pass me my?
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
And John, on these guidelines, these are gonna be on entity51.ca.
Yes.
Okay, so that,
Yeah, the whole PowerPoint will.
okay.
And then I think we should probably maybe on a separate thing, put a link to the Government of Canada website. Because I think it's important that people know that administration is just not making it up.
And this is helpful too, because I've already had people that wanna form community groups and you know, engagement groups about names. As an example, one of the candidates for the committee that didn't make it on, Melissa Foote, she's going to be spearheading a committee of high school students, so we can engage our high school students. So this would be great information to direct someone like that to.
Exactly.
Is that website our website, I guess, is that already working? Is that-
Yeah, it is.
What's it called?
Entity 51.ca. This isn't up there yet, So anything that we discuss will end up going up there. This
Okay,
PowerPoint will, but it won't be up there before meetings. Okay.
yeah, I agree with you because my grandson was already asking me about it today. How does he enter? What are the rules? So we need to get that out there that they can go there.
There's an age limit, is it not?
Not for
Not-
submitting
not
the
for
names.
Just for voting.
But, this committee has, it's loose enough that, if children want to vote, does this committee want to let 12-year-olds vote on a name? This isn't a formal election of somebody to oversee taxes. This is about a name. If River Valley Middle School has championed a name, do we want to give the children in that school an opportunity to vote? That's a decision for this committee.
Okay. If they had a vote on the 3 or 4 names that they want to submit, maybe.
Yeah.
They could go that route,
Yeah, children are submitting names.
but internally in school, let's say they had, they had
They're
5
having their
names.
own process in
They have their own
school.
process, everybody votes, so then they get a chance to vote.
That could be possible.
At what point would we sort of decide on that? On whether we would like to have that sort of process go
I
forward?
wouldn't recommend doing that tonight.
Okay, perfect.
Because we're the first one in the province starting this process. We've got a lot of it worked out, but not everything yet. So we're getting there, and we're still, like I said, we couldn't get Fredericton here. And we need to consult with them a little bit more too. Because we have such a tight turnaround and we want people to participate, we had to start this week. So that's where we're at, okay? Any other questions?
Translations, you have somebody that's qualified to translate something into indigenous names if we needed to?
Yes, actually on the 14th, the next council meeting, we have Indigenous leaders presenting to council on potential Indigenous names. There's also an online dictionary that can be referenced as well for stuff. And one of the things I did learn in talking with them, for an example, let's assume that people really like the name Wollaston. We live a long line along St. John River, known as Wollaston. Well, we can add a suffix, just an addition at the end of a word, that would allow us to use Wollaston, whereas there is so it could be, I'm not a language person for Indigenous languages, but if it was Wollastic or Wollastuxis, like Quispamsis, that might be acceptable to the Indigenous elders. Whereas just Wollastuck, I've been told, will not be acceptable to the Indigenous elders. Does that answer your question? No.
Okay, no, I just, if we come up with a name and we wanted a translation for this particular name.
We'll do our best to
Twin
find someone.
Rivers, 2 rivers, 3 rivers, whatever it would be, if something like that would have been,
We'll do our best to find someone.
Okay.
Okay. And I think Chief Ron, who's coming on the 14th, that's a question that we could ask at that time.
I was gonna ask that, why don't we invite them so we can feel with the First Nations people, with the Indigenous people?
You invite them to the meeting here?
Yes.
Yeah, I would certainly encourage that, especially after we get all the submissions.
Yes.
Yes,
And then have them as part of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate,
Yes,
so, okay?
would make our process
Yeah.
easier.
Any other questions? Okay, Brock and I are gonna trade, and I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we will proceed to item 8.
Okay.
through the chair to the committee, I'm here tonight to speak about the communication methods for the submission of name ideas for Entity 51. The first step will be creating a news release as well as a mailer, which is a double-sided flyer. That's will provide details on how to submit name ideas for Entity 51. That'll be created and distributed based on the following communication methods that I've outlined here. And it will be sent to both the residents of Bay-Westfield and a portion of the LSD of Westfield West. So the mailer will be sent to each residence in both communities, as I just mentioned. And an email will be sent to local schools, the age-friendly committee, and the River Valley Community Center to share the information via their channels as well. It will be published on the Entity 51 website at entity51.ca, the Town of Bay-Westfield website, the digital sign in front of the Town Community Centrum here, Town of Bay-Westfield social media channels, as well as we will notify local media.
Sorry to interrupt. I'd like to encourage our LSD representatives to please push it on LSD social channels and
I've been
stuff.
sharing everything
Excellent.
that Brock shares with me on our LSD.
Great.
That's excellent, thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue to do that.
I will.
So, great, thank you.
The next slide is the platform which we will be using for the submission of the name idea for Entity 51. We've decided to proceed with JotForm, and what JotForm is, it's a secure platform used for residents to submit name ideas, as the town already has a subscription for that platform. So there's no additional expense there, we already have it. And what JotForm does, it will automatically populate the name submission information into Excel, so that when it comes time to collating the information, it's easily already sorted by name, the name submitted, the details as to what I'll highlight here below, email address, etc. And as John highlighted earlier, the town office will also provide options to complete the form electronically and or paper copies as well. The fields on the job form that I've highlighted here are the first and last name of the person submitting, their email address, their street address, including the community and postal code, the field which will say enter your Entity 51 name idea here, as well as please provide details for the naming committee as to why you chose your name idea. And we will give a maximum word count to that. And then at the bottom, of course, is to agree to the terms and conditions which will be highlighted in that same form. Does anybody have any
So if
other suggestions, maybe for form fields or anything?
it's a group, like
Right.
say River Valley School or Westfield School,
Right.
so they would just put Westfield School in that address?
Yes.
There's no age in there or anything to do with age, or, right?
In the, well, we can certainly include that in the form, actually.
Right, well,
Was there something?
This won't be open to the public for viewing, this job form. When people put their name in,
The information afterwards, you mean, like how?
yes,
No.
no, okay.
Brock, I was also wondering, we have an email listed in case you need to get in contact with the person, but we might have some residents that aren't using email as frequently. Would it be prudent to also have a phone number, where you could list either or?
Sure.
Put a email. or a
Exactly,
phone number?
no, that's a great idea. We can certainly include that.
as far as age, I'd be interested to see where these names come from. We don't need age, let's say, above certain age or below certain age.
Right.
Okay, then.
And whatever is determined for the age group, we will specify that in the mailer or the flyer, which will be sent out, that it will be open to all ages, for instance. So
Oh, yeah,
I think because it's coming from, let's say, Westfield School, we'll have a general idea what the age group will be.
exactly, it's just that with the rest of it, like, there's in Bay and Westfield, there's a certain age group that will not change, so I guess I'd like to see that, where that's coming from,
So
just,
like if it just came from Louis Kigu, it would say, are you in between age 20 and 30?
Just
or
put
Right,
old
yeah, that's
on the
right.
side.
Right.
yeah, that
the
kind
range, we can certainly include a range.
alright.
We'll just put old inside there.
Exactly.
Old, senile, because I do it all that.
And this is just for the initial submission, right? the initial, not the voting, it's just.
Right, this is
done
just
this.
the name submission.
So, I have a question for Brock, Mr. Chair. Brock, what is the procedure available for someone that doesn't have internet access to submit a name?
So those are the options that the town will provide the town office. They can come to the town office and complete it electronically. If they need assistance, someone will be here to assist them with that. Or there will be paper copies available as well that they can fill in.
Okay, and will they be able to mail that in and drop it off?
There will be a Dropbox here.
Okay, thank you.
Back to the page beforehand.
Sure.
I think you've neglected the business community. I think we need to send stuff out to them
Yes.
personally too, because I think that's a big part of our community there, all the way up the river.
Yeah, I've gone to some businesses and informed them that if they were getting ready to order forms, that to hang on, and, don't do that yet, or, what I mean, like, just,
We can always also use businesses as a drop-off points for your point, for seniors or whomever don't have Wi-Fi or whatever.
Right, exactly.
They can drop it off at the drugstore, at the hardware store.
Right. The town office also has a secured box out front, which is typically used for payments, but it is secure and people can drop something off there as well.
I'm also wondering if we should, I mean, maybe this seems silly, but we should include, where the town office is. We're not the only entity that's.
Right,
managing
exactly,
it.
yes,
Should
that's
assume that people know exactly where the town office is.
Exactly, that information will be on the mail or the flyer as well as the public service announcement.
Just going back to Ms. Kelly's point about using businesses for drop-off, I think I'd like to discourage that. This is a committee's decision. I would like to discourage that because it is possible that when they drop it off here, we can control that those are authentic. But if it's dropped off somewhere else, somebody may just have a favorite name and just have a whole bunch of them that are dropped off. So with all due respect, I think it's great, but we should just have one drop-off point as an element of control for some. Sorry.
I mean, to Erica's point though, are businesses included in the mailing lists typically? Because I know the town does have like a mailing
No,
list.
I just mean as a collection depot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I mean, but yeah, they're included.
Okay, perfect. So they will be notified.
Yeah.
Yes, they will receive our mail or reflect, yes.
I'm just concerned about it as a drop-off.
Yes, yeah. Okay. If there is. Sorry, are you still there?
No, we're good. No, we're. I can move on to the next slide. Okay, perfect. This was just an example. It's draft form as it says as to what the form will potentially look like on job forms. So this is a standard look. Your name, first name and last name, email address, and we will take into consideration the other categories that were mentioned here as well this evening. Phone number as another option, the age range, and other details, but that's what it will potentially look like on job form. So the timelines, these are specific to the submission of the name idea portion of this process. We are looking at next week, March 7th to 11th, which would be the ideas that I mentioned earlier of both the news release and the mailer or the flyer to be sent out with a deadline of submitting the names of Monday, March 20th. So even if we had reached it to the end of next week on the 11th, that's still 17 days to submit names. It still gives us time in the town time to coordinate with Canada Post to get those mailers out to each residence and for us to start to promote it through the communications methods mentioned earlier.
I would just suggest that maybe we reach out to the schools via email or phone call prior, because they're gonna be shut down for March break. And so if we can give them a bit of a heads up that we want them to be involved and to be involved in the submission process, the more lead time, the better.
Okay. Thank you.
you talking about local schools here?
Yeah.
3?
Although, where exactly does Harborview fit into this? Because it is a feeder school, like we do have residents that go there, but it isn't in the town, and it's not just residents of the town, so I don't know how we want
Sorry, I believe the mayor spoke to this a little bit earlier, that there is a woman who, she put forward her name to be here, but she wants to work with the high school students. And it's not just Harborview, because we do have students who go to St. John and others. So it'll be left up to her. And then, you know, I believe the deputy mayor and the mayor are also on the PSSC for Harborview. And they have connections in other areas as well. Perhaps our DEC representative, who's familiar with the process, could contact the other schools or use her network to contact the other high schools that have students from Grand Bay-Westfield.
And we recommend that would be, yes, wonderful.
Okay. So the next steps of the process after what we've highlighted here this evening would be the collation of the names submitted, the voting process, which would include, possibly include items such as hosting an open house with a discussion from the naming committee as to how the top names were to be voted on were determined. The contest recommendation that we suggest would be, the prize winner would be a random draw from the names which are determined by the committee as voting name options. And the top name choice recommendation would be top 3, 2 plus, as John alluded to earlier, Grand Bay-Westfield already being on the ballot. And the ranked choice voting method is the method that we've discussed for using for the citizens to vote, and John will be able to speak to that.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with ranked choice voting, what happens is, this is why we're recommending 3 names and not 20, is that everybody puts their preferred name and they mark that off first. And then let's say, for an example, KG Quizbam gets 30% of the votes, and Ericaville only got 10% of the votes and she's last place, then that name gets stroked off, and then we look in the who voted for Ericaville first, we go to their second vote. And then their second vote gets added to the other names. So then it could be that, oh, all of a sudden, Grand Bay-Westfield jumps up on the second vote to 49%. And then we could potentially go to a third vote, where it's just between KG Quizbam and Grand Bay-Westfield, but all the second place votes, would then be added, and then it would go to, say, KG Quizbam winning 51 to 49 or something. So that way, the winning name will have 50% plus 1 of the votes. If we do a traditional way, like we vote for our MLA or MP, where it's first past the post, it's possible we could have a name for the community that had 30% of the people vote for it, but 70% of the people voted against it. This way, the winning name, a majority of the people voted for it. Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Where is that done here?
The voting? So we're working on that. That's a tech issue we're still sorting out. I think we have it sorted out, but it'll be online. People will be able to come here and use the electronic device just as they did there. They can use paper. We prefer not to, because I don't know if you've ever watched a political convention, ranked choice balloting takes forever. So we're hoping we can do this all electronically, and then that'll be set up. But the whole goal of ranked choice voting is the winning name gets 50% plus 1 of the votes. So it could be 51-49, but it's better than 30% for the winning name, 70% against it. And once we get there, we'll go through it again and explain it here and explain it for the public as well.
And after the voting process would be back to the naming committee to determine the name of entity 51, as John had highlighted earlier. Then we would proceed with council approval of the name of entity 51, and then the name of entity 51 would be forwarded to the government of representative.
I just have one clarifying question. It does say the naming committee determines the name of entity 51, but we're just affirming what the people have already voted on. We're
Right.
not changing what they voted.
It's the integrity of the process that
Yes.
the committee is ensuring.
Wonderful. Just, it's easy to misconstrue that, so I just wanted to say it explicitly.
Yeah.
We are deciding what people have told us to decide.
Right.
You're affirming what people have said.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's it for my portion of the presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we just need to know if the committee is in agreement with the process we've outlined in broad strokes.
So is that a moving or is it a
No,
discussion?
just a consensus around the table.
Okay.
In keeping in mind that we're the first community in the province doing it. Our process has been sought after by other communities, but it's a work in progress.
Well, does everybody want to sort of have a say on it? We can start there, go around. If you think it's good, you can also just say it's good.
I think in broad strokes, it's fine.
Okay, Chris.
I think there's a few things that we could add or take away as we go along and we see how things work. But to start with, we gotta start with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the devil is always in the details, but that's an excellent framework and procedure to start with, and I'm sure, as we, we come up with against issues as we come along, we'll be able to resolve them.
And I appreciate because now we have an idea, so when people ask us what's gonna happen, we can tell them, which is the most important point, I think, at this stage, that at least we have broad strokes ideas about how to.
We have guidelines now,
Yeah.
so it can be put forward to the public.
I think it's
Exactly,
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. So they know what's going on and what we're about, which is good.
I think we have to really make sure people realize that they are going to be picking the name.
Yes.
I kind of came into this thinking, you're gonna dump a bunch of names in front of us and we're gonna choose it.
Yeah.
And I think, this is a great way to do it, but we really have to make everybody know that they're choosing the name, not us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that needs to be in
that's
big bold letters.
Yeah, this is an ultimate exercise in democracy.
Mhm.
It's not a committee of 2 or 4 deciding, the identity or the name for thousands. It's the thousands that's going to be making that decision for themselves. So it's important for that message to get out. It's an exercise in enfranchisement, not disenfranchisement. So we all need to do our part in getting that message out through our different channels, social media, phone, social, all of that. I think it's part of our job to make sure that people really understand what we're doing here, what the purpose is of the committee and the process.
And I think we really need to let the schools know that this is democracy in making.
It's a great lesson.
It's an amazing lesson. You're
It's a
right.
teaching, it's a teaching moment here.
I agree because I think that a lot of people who reached out to me so far, just since Monday, think that we're holding all this power, that we're going to choose the name and that's going to be the way it is. So, should we be keeping our own personal opinions on it quite to ourselves? Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, if I feel it should be one name, should I be, keeping that to myself?
Yeah, I'll let John speak to that. I'm not the chair.
Sorry.
The residents from Grand Bay-Westfield who submitted their names, we received a lot more than we anticipated. We had to figure out how are we going to, narrow the field. So on Friday morning, I guess, I composed an email about, I don't remember the details, but basically is, are you able to keep your preferred choice confidential? That you won't champion the name, all that you're doing is ensuring the integrity of the process. So that's really about it, that your own preferred choice is not public. No social media presence saying, hey, we should be KG Quizbet. That should not be what your role is. Your role is encouraging people to participate, that it's their choice, not yours. All you're doing is affirming that 50% plus one of the people chose the name for Grand Bay-Westfield, even if it remains Grand Bay-Westfield.
Okay.
So that's the role of the committee in a nutshell, I think.
Fair enough.
Do we have a mover? Or do we need a mover?
We're okay, we'll just.
Okay, we will.
If does anybody object before we move on there, that's all. Okay, we're good.
The next thing we have is next meeting date, but I believe that's changed from what's on the agenda, right?
No, it's just the week of.
Okay, perfect.
So I was gonna suggest, if the committee prefers, let's wait till the week before and then Nicole will send out a doodle poll. And then we can find a time that works for everybody. So that's what I was gonna suggest, but if you wanna suggest a time now, that's fine. My only concern is if we run into a glitch with the submissions or anything like that, we may have to push it back, but I think, by the end of near the end of the competition, Brock will have a good handle on where things are.
John, are we having an extra meeting for the toponymy people?
Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, the toponymy people, I'm afraid that may just be, they're available Friday night. Please make it. If we get a choice, great, but we'll have to try and make it work. Okay, just ask for your grace and being flexible for a meeting date, that's all. I forgot about that, sorry.
Are we ready to adjourn then?
You asked that, not me.
Oh, are we ready to adjourn?
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yeah, please.
That's just to let everybody know, if I was thinking about it, because I know that Brock is putting together this frequently asked questions list on the Entity 51 website, and with your names out there, people will probably be coming to you frequently with questions like the ones you've received. So I would encourage us to maybe make note of some of the questions and let Brock know, or let anybody, so then they can be added, so we can tell people when everybody has a question, there's an Entity 51 website out there that's going to have the answers on it. So because we'll be getting the questions, so if we can pass them on, that would be probably great, and then we can get a really, really good list. I think it helps people, like first one, they'll understand the process, but then the questions and concerns about like, am I going to have to get my driver's license changed? We can say, no, you don't have to. Here's the question. So just that might be something to help everybody out.
All this information is gonna be on the website, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever presentations come before this committee, they will be going to the website. So we'll try to make sure that we have a PowerPoint at each meeting to kind of guide discussion. But that also allows your friends and neighbors to take a look at, oh, that's what you're doing. Oh, I didn't think it was that, I thought it was the other, so.
But as Aaron says, when somebody comes to us, we can just direct them right to the website and say,
There's already a lot of information on the website also.
Yeah.
it's already
John's
there.
presentation is there, I believe,
And there's a starting list of questions that have started up, but we'll get more, and sometimes I wouldn't think of it, I'm like, oh, that's a great question, so just to keep them
So
on.
people can ask questions directly on the website?
No, they ask us, and if we know that there's a frequently asked one, we'll put it up on the website with the answer.
Or, if your friends or neighbors ask you something, say email communications
Yes,
at
that's,
towngbw.ca.
okay, and they'll get an answer.
Sorry, Rob.
No worries.
Say that again?
The email address?
Yeah.
communications@towngbw.ca.
Before we adjourn, I did have someone ask me a question regarding, the criteria for voting. And the question was, do you have to be a resident? Or if you own property with a civic number, does that make you eligible for voting? So I think that's a question that we should address on the website.
You probably have to be a lawyer to look at something like that.
Yeah, because I didn't know right off. I mean, my gut says you should be a resident, but it is a question that I think we should explore.
Likewise, I'll ask about under 18.
gbw.ca.
Yeah.
All right, any other last minute thoughts, questions, concerns? If not, thank you everybody for coming. We shall adjourn.
Thank you.
So someone have to second my